learned that there are a lot of different genres of books. What we're going to do today is kind of dive in a little bit to the fiction genre and talk about Plot Mountain. Every fictional story follows the same pattern. We meet, we have a problem, the action is rising, the action is very emotional, you're kind of stressed, wondering what's going to happen, and then it has falling action down to the end of the story. We're going to go over today Plot Mountain and see if you can help me label the parts of Plot Mountain. Now here is our mountain. It's called Plot Mountain not because there's actually a mountain that's name is Plot, but because it looks like a mountain. This is the story structure that fictional stories follow. This is not applicable to nonfiction. If you're learning about informational type things, there's not this structure, but this follows fictional stories. And we've learned in class, fantasy means impossible, but this also is for realistic fiction stories too. Books that we've read in class follows this even though they're not impossible, but this follows the fictional genre. Let's go ahead and start. At the bottom of Plot Mountain, we have to start our story, and most stories begin with what? The problem? No, not yet. Usually stories begin with introducing us to the characters. We have to know who is going to be in the story. We also have to know where they are and when they are there. So at the beginning of Plot Mountain, we're introduced to the setting and the characters. Some books do setting first, but some stories do setting after the characters. But both of these things have to be introduced first in a story. There's a dip down here. There's like a little mini Plot Mountain on Plot Mountain. What goes there in a story? We already know the who, the characters. We already know the setting, the where and the when. What happens next? Ding, 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 ding. My favorite word, conflict. There has to be a problem in a fictional story. It helps the plot continue. This right here is where we're introduced to the conflict. We know the conflict and the characters are going to try to solve it, going to try to fix it, but it's going to take more than one try. Usually in any good movie, think about a Disney movie where you have fictional characters trying to get over a problem they have. It's not fixed the very first time they try. What makes a good story is several attempts which rises the action in a story. So we know where the story, we know the who, and now we know the problem, the conflict that the characters are facing. They're going to spend some time going up Plot Mountain, and we call this rising action. So the action of the story is rising to the top. Have they fixed their problem yet? No, they still have their conflict. This is the peak of Plot Mountain, and what do we call that part of the story? Where the energy is tight, you're on the edge of your seat. So if you're at the movie theater, this is where your hands are sweaty and you're afraid to look away. That's the climax. All of the action has risen up to that point in the story where you're wondering which way is it going to go. This is the turning point of the story. So at the very top up here, it's called the climax. Once you've reached the tip top, there's only one place to go, and that's down. After we've risen up, what do we have to do now? We fall back down. So after the conflict has reached its peak, we have falling action in our story where the action starts to fall back down. It's easing up a little bit. Finally, the characters are able to reach the resolution of their problem. Resolution comes at the end. This is when the conflict has been solved. So at the beginning of Plot Mountain, the first thing we do is not find out how the story ends. No, we don't even get the highest action at the beginning. There has to be elements in place as we travel up and down Plot Mountain in stories. As you are reading stories, make sure you're thinking in your head, as good readers do, what part of Plot Mountain am I on? Do you think I've reached the climax point of this story yet, or do I think more action is rising? Pay attention to your setting too. It's not just where, it's also when. So it's what season is my story in, it's what year. A lot of fairy tales say once upon a time. Well, that means they don't know when it happened. That helps us know the setting. When you're being introduced to characters, remember that all happens at the beginning. Not all characters are introduced in the beginning, but the main characters are. There's going to be random characters throughout Plot Mountain, but they don't serve as our main character's journey. This is their journey at Plot Mountain. So when you are watching Lion King and you are wondering why Simba ran away from home, it's because it makes for a better story. He needed the journey along Plot Mountain before he came back home and defeated Scar. Thank you for watching.